In the vast expanse of the galaxy, on a planet known as Varethus, there once reigned a queen whose name sent ripples of fear and respect through every known civilization. Queen Ziriana was a tyrant unlike any other. Her reign was marked by merciless conquest and the ruthless eradication of any who opposed her rule. Her people, the Zarnixians, were a fierce and ancient race of beings, known for their mastery of both advanced technology and dark magic. Under her rule, the Zarnixian Empire expanded rapidly, consuming world after world. But it was not just her strength that made her feared. It was her cruelty. Ziriana believed in the survival of the fittest, using her power to crush the weak and punish even the smallest of rebellions. She enslaved entire civilizations, reshaped planets to her will, and left devastation in her wake. The very air seemed to tremble when she walked, and the stars dimmed as if afraid of her presence. However, power has a way of distorting even the most resolute rulers. Ziriana grew arrogant, believing that no force in the universe could ever challenge her. But one day, an uprising began. The people, tired of living in fear, joined forces, and even some of her own closest advisors turned against her. The final blow came when a coalition of alien species managed to infiltrate her palace, overthrowing her and sentencing her to exile on a cold, barren world. Varethus, a planet on the fringe of the galaxy, was chosen as her prison. It was a frozen wasteland with nothing but towering mountains of ice, endless snowstorms, and a dying sun. Ziriana, once a queen who commanded the obedience of billions, was left alone, her advanced technologies rendered useless in the harsh environment. Her once pristine black armor, decorated with the sigils of her empire, was now tarnished by the elements. Her hands, which had once held the scepter of power, were now raw from the brutal cold. At first, Ziriana cursed her fate. She cursed the very beings who had betrayed her, vowing to return and take vengeance on those who had exiled her. But as the weeks turned into months, and then into years, something strange began to happen. The cold of Varethus, the emptiness of the planet, and the isolation slowly started to change her. The queen, who had once been the embodiment of power and control, found herself broken and vulnerable in ways she never thought possible. Ziriana found herself drawn to the icy landscape. She had no choice but to explore the barren world, finding beauty in the frozen peaks and the silent expanse of snow. The starkness of the planet, the way the cold bit at her skin, reminded her of the emptiness she had cultivated in her heart. For the first time, she reflected on the horrors of her past, the countless lives she had taken, the planet she had ravaged, and the fear she had sown in the hearts of others. It was not her power that had made her strong, it was her cruelty. And now, she was alone. One day, as she wandered through the frozen wasteland, Ziriana stumbled upon something she had never expected to see, a hidden cave deep within the ice. Inside, she found an artifact, one unlike anything she had ever seen. It was a crystalline orb, glowing faintly with an eerie light. As her fingers brushed against the surface of the orb, a vision filled her mind. Images of a past she had long since forgotten, a past before she became the Tyrant Queen. She saw herself as a child, full of hope and innocence, before she was corrupted by power and revenge. The orb showed her the consequences of her actions, the suffering she had caused, the destruction of entire civilizations, and the lives that had been extinguished because of her choices. The orb did not show her any way out. It did not offer redemption or forgiveness, but it did offer something far more surreal, the chance to see the truth of who she had become. Ziriana fell to her knees, overwhelmed by the weight of the visions. For the first time in her life, she understood the depth of her sins. Her heart, once hardened by years of cruelty, began to soften. The darkness that had consumed her soul began to crack, and she felt something she had not experienced in eons: guilt. The coldness of the planet, once her punishment, now felt like a mirror to her soul. The ice reflected her heart, frozen and hollow, waiting for something to break it open. Days turned into weeks as Ziriana meditated on the vision she had seen. Slowly, she began to change. She found herself at peace with the icy solitude of Varethus, no longer fighting against her fate, but accepting it. The once feared tyrant no longer craved power or vengeance. Instead, she found solace in the stillness, in the quiet of the snowstorms that raged outside her cave. One fateful night, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the planet of Varethus seemed to shimmer with an unnatural glow. The icy winds stilled, and the air itself seemed to hum with energy. Ziriana felt a strange pull, as if something deep within the planet was calling to her. Following the sensation, she ventured out into the snowstorm once more, the orb clutched tightly in her hands. At the heart of the planet, she found a glowing fissure in the ice, an enormous crack that seemed to pulse with otherworldly power. The orb reacted to the energy, humming with an intense force. Ziriana, in her broken and vulnerable state, approached the fissure, and in that moment she understood. The planet itself was alive, a living entity that had been watching her, observing her cruelty, her transformation, and her eventual awakening. The planet had been waiting for her to realize her sins, to come to terms with the darkness in her heart. It was not a punishment. It was a chance for rebirth. The fissure opened before her, revealing an immense energy, pure and untainted by her past. The planet was offering her one final gift, the chance to be reborn, to cleanse herself of the sins she had committed, to become something greater than she had ever been. As she stepped into the glowing fissure, a brilliant light enveloped her, and for the first time, Ziriana felt a sense of peace. The energy of the planet flowed through her, healing the wounds she had inflicted upon herself and the galaxy. She could feel the power of Varethus, not as a weapon, but as a force of life, something that nurtured and healed. When the light faded, Ziriana stood at the edge of the fissure, transformed. Her armor was no longer a symbol of conquest, but a reflection of the unity she had found within herself. The once cold and barren landscape of Varethus now seemed alive with energy, the ice sparkling like stars in the sky. The planet had forgiven her, and in that forgiveness, she had found a new purpose. Ziriana, the Tyrant Queen, was no more. In her place stood a being of light and redemption, ready to return to the galaxy, not as a conqueror, but as a healer, seeking to undo the damage she had caused. The exile had not been her punishment. It had been her salvation. As she stood beneath the shimmering sky of Varethus, Ziriana smiled for the first time in centuries, knowing that her journey had only just begun. "You said